Hello folks, this is Garnet Schulhauser. I'm the author of 5 books in the spiritual genre and also a level 2 quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioner. And you can learn more about my books and about my QHHT practice on my website, which is garnetschulhauser.com. Now, all of my books deal with my astral travels with my spirit guide Albert. Accosted me one day on the street disguised as a homeless man. And over the years, he's taken me on many out-of-body trips on the astral plane, including many times to the spirit side, which is a very high vibration dimension where all souls go after their physical bodies die. And on the spirit side, I've encountered many very interesting people who have lived lives on Earth, some of them famous, some of them not so famous, but they all have a story to tell. And I've learned many things which people on Earth here might find to be strange or startling. And in this new series that I've started to do videos for, called Startling Revelations from the Spirit Realm, I'm going to disclose some of these revelations to you so you can have a better idea of some of the things I experienced on the spirit side. Now, today's startling revelations from the spirit realm have to do with Elvis Presley, the King. And the story is that Elvis Presley is alive and well. Now, I don't mean that he is alive physically like he was on Earth. I mean that his soul transpired over to the spirit side in 1977 when his physical body died. So his soul is alive and well and doing very well on the spirit side, even though he left his physical body on Earth quite a few years ago. So how this all began was I was strolling through the white city of Aglaia, which is a beautiful city on the spirit side, with Albert. And we reached the outskirts and he took me into a large open amphitheater that was filled with people in the stands. So we took a seat on one of the benches. I wasn't sure what to expect, but all of a sudden on the stage below, a figure in a brilliant, resplendent white jumpsuit appeared on the stage, and it was Elvis the King, and he was there to do a concert for the people in the stands, and a concert he did indeed. It was a fabulous concert. He began by singing some of his very early favorites, like Hound Dog, Jailhouse Rock, All Shook Up, some of the very early ones, and he delighted the crowd by swiveling his hips. Now, for some of the younger viewers, they may not be aware that in the early days, Elvis did swivel his hips as part of his stage act. It was designed to excite the people in the crowd, especially the females. And it worked very well. It was very popular for a while, but he didn't do it all the time. As an interesting aside, I've always been a fan of Elvis since as long as I can remember, but I never had the pleasure of ever watching him live in a concert. And my first encounter watching Elvis was on television. It was Sunday night on the Ed Sullivan Show. The Ed Sullivan Show was sort of a stalwart of Sunday evening viewing back in those days. In those days, we had only 2 channels. So he was on one of the channels, and we watched him religiously every Sunday night. So Ed Sullivan had Elvis on his show. And Elvis, at the early days, as I said, used to swivel his hips. Well, here's the interesting thing. The network that was covering the Ed Sullivan Show decided that these swiveling hips were too racy for their audience. So what they did was when he started swiveling their hips, they literally blacked out the bottom part of the screen so that you couldn't see Elvis from the waist below. Couldn't see his hips swiveling. You can see him from waist up. They did that because they didn't think their audience should be allowed to see his swiveling hips, which sounds totally goofy today, I know, but that's actually what happened. Anyway, that's just an aside. Back to the concert on the spirit side. Elvis was basically singing all of his hits to the adoration of his fans. Everyone was on their feet, and he went through some of his basically he hit all of his popular hits. He did, Wooden Heart and Can't Stop Falling in Love, Suspicious Minds, the crowd was just lapping it up and loving it. At the very end of the show, to the disappointment of the crowd, Elvis closed it off by singing one of my favorites, "In the Ghetto." Then he left the stage, and the crowd continued to applaud, standing on their feet, cheering and hollering, and asking him to come back for an encore. Eventually he did, and he sang "Kentucky Rain." Then he left the stage. The applause continued long after he went behind the curtain, and it was just truly an amazing concert. But then I didn't know what was to come next. Albert took me down the steps. We went behind the stage to where the dressing rooms were. There, he knocked on one of the doors. The door opened. We walked in, and my jaw dropped open, because there I was, standing face to face with the king. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether I should bow, shake his hand, or ask for his autograph. And Elvis could sort of sense my concern about what to do, and he just addressed me warmly and said, "Welcome to my dressing room." Well, the conversation got going, and then at one point I said to him, "Elvis, do you have any regrets about the life you left behind you on earth as Elvis Presley, the king?" He said yes, he did. He said he wished that his life had not ended the way that it did. And he wished that he had managed to tough it out and overcome some of the obstacles and challenges that he had laid out for himself before he incarnated, and that things probably would have turned out okay. But he was desperate. He was tired of being a performer. He did not want to disappoint his handlers or his fans. He said he thought it was impossible for him, even though if he had wanted to quit his public life and go live somewhere on a deserted island somewhere away from the public eye. But he knew that he just wasn't able to do that because of his fans and his handlers. So he basically started taking prescription drugs. And it started innocently enough, but then over time he kept on taking more and more. And that was his way of managing to get through his day, because every morning he woke up and it was like, oh God, another day in what some people would call paradise, because he was a star, but to him it was a real burden. And so he understood, after he got back on the spirit side, after leaving his body, he understood that he had an unconscious death wish. And that's why he was increasing the drugs over and over, because he unconsciously knew that the way for him to escape what was his own personal hell was through death. And so now that he was back on the spirit side, he said, okay, he realized that he made a lot of mistakes. I mean, he did a lot of good things, just like everyone else who has had a life on earth. He wishes he had changed a lot of things, had not taken prescription drugs, but he realized that that's all water under the bridge. He couldn't change that. But what he could do is learn from the lessons of that life. And he said that he had, and he was now very happy on the spirit side, giving concerts to his fans, and he knew that eventually he would get around to planning another life on earth where he could once again face the challenges that he did not overcome in his life as Elvis Presley on earth. Well, I left there with a feeling of awe, knowing that I'd finally met Elvis Presley, the king, in person, even though it was not in the physical sense, but in the astral plane. And I also knew that I felt very good about the fact that he was alive and well, enjoying his existence on the spirit side, and knowing that he would someday come back to earth in another incarnation. And I secretly hoped that he would come back as a musician in some form, so that he could again thrill the people on planet Earth as he had done when he was Elvis Presley, the king. Well, that's all for now, folks. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video or my other videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I hope you all have a great day. Remember to keep on dancing.